What's up, what's up, what's up? It's your boy Amari. I'm here with my co-host Christian Phillips, and you're tuned in to Talkin Nonsense. Today we have special guest, Russell Heitmann. How you doing today, Russell?
I'm well. Thanks for having me on.
Man, thank you for coming in.
Excited to talk some hoops while playing some retro hoops here.
Hope Christian can put it on you. It's a trash game right here, though. Two Big 12 teams. Big 10 at the time, wasn't it? No, it was the Big 12.
Yeah, this was still technically Big 12. I guess not no technical about it. But
Well, hold on. Which conferences have changed? I know the Pac-12 was the Pac-10. The SEC expanded.
Oh, God. That's not what I wanted to do. Yeah, the Pac-12 was the Pac-10 because they took Colorado from the Big 12. And I don't know who else they grabbed. They got New Mexico, I think, that joined in them too. No, they're still in the.
I know the Big East, at least for football, is the American Athletic Conference now.
Oh, no.
Well, they were. I guess they probably would have had the Big East, but the Big East, as it once was, completely crumbled, which was very sad because the Big East tournament of yesteryear was probably the most.
Oh, with UConn and all. Oh my God.
Yeah, that tournament was almost better than the Big 12 or the NCAA tournament because you got 16 teams that includes like UConn, Syracuse, Georgetown, and those types of schools playing West Virginia, Pitt, and then now you've got I don't even know what's in the Big East. I guess that's basically the Catholic League now is what it branded as. So Villanova, DePaul, Seton Hall, Creighton, which there's still some decent teams in there, but.
No, I still remember the Big East tournament with my 7th grade year when Kemba Walker hit the game winner.
I remember watching that game too.
Oh my God.
That was a transcendent moment in college basketball history.
Oh my God. Man.
Very much unlike what's going on here.
I still have no clue how to play this. Oh, give me that. Oh, man, it's out.
Yeah, no, there's definitely rebranding. Texas A&M was in the Big 12 at this point. Now then they're in the SEC now. Missouri was in the Big 12 at this point. They're in the SEC now. West Virginia probably never thought in a million years they'd have to be traveling to
how did West Virginia end up in the Big 12?
Well, the Big East crumbling and the teams needed places to go.
But they should have went to the ACC.
That's what you'd think.
That's what Pitt and Miami did.
I don't know.
Because a lot of people forget that Miami was in the Big East when they won national championships.
A lot of it had to do with football, honestly. It's what the football teams could do. That's why, as a Kansas fan, I was pretty worried when all this conference realignment was happening because if the Big 12 would have folded, they'd be thinking, what can we get from teams regarding their football prowess, which means Kansas ends up in the SWAC or something because the Big 10 or the SEC or even the Pac-12 wants no business of Kansas football.
The SWAC.
The Southwestern.
Yeah, I know what the SWAC is with Alcorn and Grambling.
Yeah,
the HBCUs.
Just picked something that because half those teams would still wipe the floor with probably what Kansas would do in football because they're. I know we're not really talking about football, but I'm hoping that with Les Miles things can maybe get a little bit better, but. It's going to take a lot.
KU definitely showed some flashes this year, I'll say. They showed that they could look good.
Yeah, it'll take.
Who they almost beat, Texas.
Yeah,
they took Texas down to the last 50 seconds.
They competed with OU and Lawrence. It honestly all comes down to how Puka Williams produces week in and week out.
He's a good ball player, which
they're going to start struggling again, or hopefully not with losing their quarterback, but.
They didn't really have a quarterback, to be honest.
Well, it's what's frustrating the most is, I can't even think of his name, but he played really well this year, all things considered.
Stanley?
Yeah, Stanley. But
is that the kid from Vero?
From Florida.
The Florida kid?
Yeah. And I'm not even going to remember the former coach's name because of how poor he was, but he was basically in a quarterback competition for his entire 4 years with guys who proved to be very, very bad. Yeah. And so the biggest gripe against David Beatty, who it was was that he couldn't see the talent that he had. And so finally, when they recognize this talent, he's a senior, and then they play decent enough, but now he graduates, and they've got to go through the whole quarterback process again. I don't know. Hopefully it'll get better, but that's a big reason why during all that conference realignment I was worried that KU would get shipped off somewhere that was not desirable because of their lack of basketball production or football production. There's a little bit of a delay on that free throw button. Those were not good, to say the least.
I mean, even with KU not producing, I mean, people even touched on the possibility of either Texas or OU leaving
to go where?
The SEC.
I don't think Texas goes anywhere.
Yeah, I can't see Texas or OU leaving the Big 12.
Yeah,
like they're the brands of the Big 12.
They got a little scared because when Texas came out with the Longhorn Network, that they basically crumbled the Big 12 because that puts a damper on the actual televised games that they receive.
Well, yeah, the Longhorn Network, it reminds me, Nebraska was also in the Big 12 at this point. And I'm from Nebraska, so all of the anti-Texas people in Nebraska.
How are you a KU fan from Nebraska?
I
thought Big Red was like God in Nebraska. Like,
it is.
I thought it was like a sin to be a fan of a team from anywhere else.
I'm a first-generation Nebraskan, for what that's worth. So I grew up with a dad who was a big KU fan, so it just kind of was instituted. And then the fact that Nebraska is just such a crazy fanhood, if you don't live and breathe what they preach, they'll ostracize you pretty quick. So I got kind of tired of that. But, yeah, no, they were not too thrilled with the potential of the Longhorn Network, so that's why a lot of Nebraska fans were happy when they left, because they didn't want to be the little brother to Texas any longer, because the glory years of Nebraska have been long gone, and a lot of Nebraska fans weren't really too keen to recognize that as a reality.
Scott Frost might bring it back, hopefully. He got one more year.
One
more year to make me a believer.
He's got to do something. I mean, because, he's put back.
It's hard to recruit, though. I know he recruits a lot of kids from Florida, and a lot of them leave after that first semester.
There's nothing desirable about playing for Nebraska.
I don't know, dog.
That's what a lot of recruits are starting to look at. What's desirable about the city that you're playing in?
Lincoln is not a bad city,
place.
But it doesn't have the bells and whistles of a.
If it was in Omaha, it wouldn't be a question.
Yeah, it doesn't. But that's why Lincoln, they've put a lot of resources into their facilities because they know they need that. I mean, Ndamukong Suh put a bunch of money into their weight room, and it is a top-class weight facility. They've got a brand-new training facility that they're building. So, they're doing everything they can short of dropping Lincoln onto the east or west coast on a beach.
And Coach Frost, that's his third season?
This will be his third
season coming up.
Okay. Yeah, because, it's either now or never for them.
I don't know. I don't know, man. I think it's more the players got to buy into it because he's a great coach, and it's proven like his track record speaks for itself. So
I think what frustrates a lot of Nebraska fans is they were in a lot of games that they probably should have won,
like Colorado,
and lost some games that they shouldn't have lost. And
it's either they won big or a team came back and won late.
Did South Alabama beat them? I remember that game being real close. Like South Alabama returned like 2 punt return TDs.
I don't think they ended up losing that one, but I think it was early enough in the season that Nebraska fans were like, "Oh, this is a bye game, and we didn't win, or we didn't win big."
Yeah. I think they ended up winning off of a late touchdown. How am I missing those?
Unlike the retro version we were playing earlier, you have to take off from a little bit closer.
No rules. You can have pump fakes up in the air.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see after Nebraska turns it around.
Oh,
I hope they do, because I do have a lot of people back home that are big Nebraska fans. I mean, do or die. I mean, the Nebraska fanhood is, you're right, Amari, in saying it is basically the biggest thing that you could possibly have. Because there's no pro teams in Nebraska.
I remember what, my sophomore year on the field, we had to go play UNK at 11 a.m. because they were afraid that people wouldn't come to that game because Nebraska played at 2. And, like, even if they weren't going to the game, they were going to stay home and watch the game versus coming to
it's
watch UNK play.
It's all there is. And it's kudos to UNK for even having half a program these past couple of years when having to deal with. I mean, because it's people, like, even in Kansas, like, people recognize Fort Hays State and Pittsburgh State and Emporia State, but in Nebraska, it's like like, what is Nebraska Kearney? It could be the equivalent of a community college or less to the eyes of a lot of casual fans, because all there is
Big Red.
And they definitely live and breathe it, and that's why I hope they can come back to be somewhat relevant, because I think college football is better off when Nebraska is good, because even though they haven't been successful for a number of years, like on the level that they want to be, I mean, you can't deny that Nebraska is kind of on that upper tier echelon of college football royalty,
for sure.
Even if it's
whenever you're the professional team in your state, for sure.
I would liken them to UCLA of college basketball. Like, UCLA is undeniably the most historically relevant college basketball program. That said, they haven't been successful on the level that they want to be since they made a couple of Final Fours. They actually made a Final Four in 06 or 07 and 08, but they didn't win it, and that's why they fired Ben Howland, and now he's patrolling the SEC sidelines. But they haven't won a championship since the 90s in basketball, and that is the same way as kind of Nebraska football is.
Why are you stopping so early?
Hey, that is the mechanics of the game. I've left like 12 points on the board by doing that.
This dude is killing you, man. It's how it look if we play 2K, bro. I'm telling you.
No.
It'd probably be worse by now.
You got a floater to go.
Since we're playing a little NCAA, we'll talk about some March Madness. So, Amari, here's this sheet. What one seed do you guys think is more likely to lose?
Oh, don't intentional foul. I mean, as it stands currently, I mean, they've got San Diego State, Baylor, Gonzaga, Kansas, which I think is would be the most interesting one-seed quadrant in the last, like, 20 years. And I think it'll hold, too. But I would argue probably San Diego State.
Yeah, I got SDSU losing first. But I don't know, man. Basketball is crazy. I think all college sports are unpredictable. Like, unless you got a team like LSU that you can just see just dominating everybody, is college sports are unpredictable, and I think that's the best thing about it.
Well, and this year especially. I mean, you can go back to, like, 2015 was probably the most recent pure dominant college basketball team when Kentucky was 38-0 going into the Final Four, but they still lost. And that's probably one of the best college basketball teams that we've had in 20 or 30 years, but they didn't get it done, and that just speaks to what can happen in the tournament. Mm-hmm. But then you fast forward to this year, where more number one teams lost before January than any other calendar year. So it's just a complete wide open field, and you can see that by having Baylor on the top line in addition to San Diego State and Gonzaga. And Gonzaga's been there before, and Kansas has been there before, but that doesn't mean that other teams can't slip into those spots either, because
there's still a lot of basketball to be played until then. But I mean, Baylor hasn't. I mean, they don't have a good track record in the March Madness tournament. So, I mean, if a one seed's gonna lose, it's gonna have to be them.
You'll argue Baylor before San Diego State?
Yeah, I just think San Diego State's a scrappy team. I mean, Baylor has a good defense, but I mean, they let a porous defense like Oklahoma slow them down. So, I mean, that's not a really good look going into March. So, At least San Diego State can stretch the floor.
Yeah, it's the thing that I see with San Diego State is going to be similar, I think, to what happened to Gonzaga on a number of times and what happened to Wichita State when they were a number 1 seed and undefeated a few years ago, is eventually the quality of competition you play night in, night out is going to kind of be a factor. And it's not everything, because like in college football, playing in the SEC as opposed to playing in the SWAC, like we talked about earlier, is a huge difference. And a team from the SWAC is not going to make a college football playoff, not going to make any noise. Whereas a team like San Diego State in the Mountain West can do that, but they're still not playing. They're not playing against Baylor twice, or they're not playing against. I guess Gonzaga is not another good option because they're also playing in a rather poor conference. So that makes it interesting, but they don't get challenged.
Which college basketball, I think you don't know what's going to happen till the tournament gets here.
I think a team that everybody's kind of sleeping on is Florida State.
Oh, I was about to bring them up now.
I was actually, I think Christian, you and I were talking about this a couple days ago. As a KU fan, I said there were 3 teams that I really don't want to play, and that would be a Virginia type, a Syracuse type, or a Florida State type, because they play just such a physical, demanding defensive style, and they have such length and athleticism that just – and Bill Self, being one of the more stubborn coaches in the country, will try to fight fire with fire in the same way, and
it won't work.
It doesn't often work against those teams. There's a reason why, like, when Duke beat them, they played them with finesse to try to counteract that grimy, muddy style that Florida State plays.
Florida State's basketball program is definitely on the rise the last 3 years.
Well, they definitely kind of float under the radar. You don't realize that they are there all the time, and that's a testament to Leonard Hamilton as a coach.
Shooting is circle, and dunking and laying it up is square.
Definitely pass a lot more than Christian did.
Yeah.
Oh, I got OU. I'm tripping.
If you need to look at the controls, you can press start and kind of look them over.
Yeah, Florida State has been, and they've been good, and I think every year when they find themselves in the top 10, it's like, oh, how'd Florida State get here? And it's like, well, you look back over the past 3 or 4 years, well, they've been there every go-around.
Well, I got to bring my team up. I mean, we can be a sleeper team if we can hit shots consistently. I mean, they show that they can hit from 3, but anytime they go up against a team with length, they just fold.
Yeah, well, their 4s, do they have Manick playing at the 4?
Yeah.
He's a phenomenal shooter and a very, very good stretch 4, but
and what kills him, I wish he would learn how to dribble a little bit. He's just literally the catch and shoot type. And it kills us, having that good of a player that can't dribble the ball on the court.
He ain't that good, dude.
He's figured out his role as that shooter. But
by experts, he's been compared shooting-wise to Klay Thompson.
And I don't think that's totally unrealistic. I know that's one of those comparisons that's just like, holy crap, how could you possibly think that?
Yeah.
But he hits shots similar. Like every year you see that highlight of Klay Thompson floating around of hitting 38, 39 points on
13 dribbles.
And that's exactly the type of player that Manick can and probably will be at the next level.
Oh, definitely. If you just watch his shot, it is
so
fast. I mean, to the point he doesn't – there's no point for him to dribble the ball.
Oh.
And in the last couple weeks, the problem has been Reeves taking too difficult of shots.
How you sprint?
R1.
Yeah. Never seen anybody take the ball up with the center.
I didn't take it up with him. I passed it to him.
But definitely, I don't have high hopes for them, especially.
Is that like L2, R2 or something?
R2, yeah.
Yeah. They'll probably be a first-round exit. I'm a little excited to see what Wichita State's going to do. They've kind of had an off second part of the season, but they still have that mentality of playing great defense and
that'll
give them an opportunity.
That'll give you a shot. If you
Bro, how he still everything?
If you can defend, you can have a chance. But
and I would say right now they have Duke and Montana playing the first round. Duke is not a solid team right now. They've had huge letdowns this season. I could honestly see Montana making that upset as a 15 seed, a projected 15 seed.
I don't know a lick about Montana. My wife is a Duke fan, so I see more Duke than I'd probably like to see. But they're a team that definitely, they kind of ebb and flow. I think they could just as easily lose to Montana as they could beat them by 30 or 40. And I think that's definitely more likely, beating them by 30 or 40. But some of the other numbers on this list, the top 68 things or whatever to expect, I mean, they're pretty high on Vernon Carey. I think they're a little over high on him, but it's warranted because he is a very, very good ball player. I like seeing a guy like Carey because he is kind of a throwback big, but has enough skill to play outside, like maybe like Jahlil Okafor from 2015 couldn't do. But yeah, Carey is a dangerous matchup, and yeah, I don't know if he's going to be the leading scorer in the NCAA tournament like this list seems to assert, but he definitely will be a problem for a team in Montana playing out of the Big Sky that their starting center is probably about my size.
Here's one that's interesting. Preseason number 1 seed Michigan State won't make it past the Sweet 16.
That's one of the less, I think, difficult ones to see happening. And they could just as easily make a Final Four or national championship because Tom Izzo's a great coach and they've got Cassius Winston, who's a great player. But they've definitely underperformed this year. But a lot of that has also been because of injury to Langford, but Langford, their guy. And also what Winston had to deal with his brother passing away. I mean, that's not necessarily an excuse, but some of their early season lumps, I think, can probably be attributed to not being in a great state of mind.
Yeah, I mean, you see who they might have to play the first round, Georgetown or Florida. Those are two very scrappy teams that always make, surprise visits in March Madness. So
what do they have Michigan State projected at right now?
Seed-wise?
Yeah.
Number 5.
And that's probably fair because they're going to get their wins in the Big Ten because the Big Ten went from being perhaps the best conference early season to middling out pretty fast, whereas they've got a bunch of, I think, 5 seeds. Maryland's probably their best team, but like Ohio State was number 2 in the country at one point, and then they evened out. Michigan State was number 1 in the country, and they evened out. I mean, all these teams are. I mean,
looking at them, there's no like clear cut, favorite to win it. There's nobody that's just that dominant that you're like, yes, this team's gonna win it. I mean, 5 seeds are usually pretty good, but you look at them and they're not that impressive. 11 seeds have made deep runs, but then again, not very impressive. But
no, don't pass that. Oh no. That was.
I want to say this year is a good year for the number 1 seed, but I mean, it's March Madness; anything can happen. So it's hard to say that. But
well, and with these number 1 seeds too, like we've talked about, like Baylor, you don't trust them, and that's understandable. I mean, Gonzaga, San Diego State are also difficult to trust as going super far, and even Kansas this year, like they're not that great. I mean, they're good. But they're one poor shooting performance away from getting bounced because they rely with defense.
Wasn't Torian Prince and Rico Gathers playing at Baylor when they had that big letdown against Georgia State?
That would sound about right because that would have been about 2015 or so. I mean, they've had good players, but that's why I also think I read a really good article by Jeff Goodman that he talked to Coach Scott Drew. And Coach Drew has kind of changed his coaching philosophy. He was probably a top 5 recruiter 5 or 6 years ago. I mean, he got guys like Isaiah Austin. He got some really talented players. But they had those letdowns because they didn't quite put it all together.
Mm-hmm.
This is a senior upperclassman-driven team with a lot of size, unheralded guys that play tough. And so I wouldn't be surprised if this Baylor team breaks the mold that previous Baylor teams have had so much of. And I think that'd be cool because
Yeah, I mean, they definitely have the length to do it. I mean, anytime you have such physical and athletic bigs, it's hard to compete against that, especially when you have smaller guards.
and the history that Scott Drew took over, I mean, he's been the coach there since they got the death penalty in the early 2000s. And he took a program that many people basically said, like, this program is not going to be able to come back from this. And they have. And they've made a couple of Elite Eights. I mean, I think one of them on here is that Baylor's going to get past their best.
They have that 2K glitch on here, too. They've never fixed that.
Just throw a half-court alley-oop like it's nothing.
You get fouled every time you go in the hole.
Man,
It's that Kansas favorable whistle.
it's the mechanics on here.
He practiced, though, like he said, so.
Yeah, he has like
I practiced
1,000 hours of gameplay.
against Kansas State in Allen Fieldhouse with a team that I've played with since the game came out.
Oh, that's good. That's
Thought
not.
it was. Try it again.
So it's a little easier to be successful there. Yeah, this has been glorified button mashing for me, though. Which I'm glad I'm not getting embarrassed because I am not a great video gamer, to say the least.
You see number 67. We already brought up Florida State, but it said Florida State will win an odd number of games this year.
It's either a first-round exit or a
That sound like a bet.
5.
Sound like a prop to me.
'Cause it's win 6 to win champs. So they're either a first-round loss, a Sweet 16 loss, or a Final Four loss. And I can see that happening because they're good. They're a good defensive team. They've got good
They can,
upperclassmen.
yeah, they can shoot the ball.
But yeah, this year is just, it's definitely going to be one of the more interesting tournaments I think we've had. And they always are. And that's it's the beauty of the game of college basketball. But
I mean, I think another sleeper is Michigan right now. I mean, they always
that's not
overperform. I mean, they're a projected 8 seed playing Xavier.
we'll take that.
How?
Is Michigan you're talking about?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, they were a team that
Go
early in the season was they should be ranked number 1. Look at their resume, and they had a good early season resume. But like a lot of the other Big Ten teams, that just kind of everything else caught up with them.
Big Ten was, I mean, they're deep team-wise. I mean, it was a very competitive conference this year. You see, look at the mechanics on that. How
Bro, this dude is making
like
everything.
an over-the-head pass, and he just reaches with one hand.
The hand that wasn't even on the side where the ball was going.
We'll take a second to remember the game. He's 14 years old. Yep, that's about right.
We would have missed that. Oh, look at that.
Ooh.
Amari, 24 points.
I got it down 10. Don't forget.
I was worried there for a second. It was like 40.
I cut it down to 3 at one point.
Didn't I give it to you down by like 6?
Nah. No.
It was no double digits.
Yes, it was.
I didn't seem like it.
Yeah. Because you were talking.
That must have been it.
Don't start with me. We've been doing good today. Let's just finish this game out strong.
I will say, having listened and watched a lot of your guys' podcast. Your guys' dynamic is enjoyable. It's fun to. Said you guys
Like Skip and Shannon.
Yeah, we bicker like an old married couple, which is very Skip and Shannon-esque. Yeah, there's another goaltend. Do I dribble out the clock or do I pull a Kansas State, Kansas?
Be a Christian.
Oh, no, you run out the clock, Russell. Come on. There's no mercy.
They set a pick to get him free for the tray.
Knockdown.
Little to the right.
Man. Well, that's the first loss I've taken on the show.
You were given a hole early,
Yeah.
and I guess I can't really argue the whole. Technically, your team wasn't as good because this Oklahoma team is supposedly ranked number 2.
Oh, that's a video game, though. Players get in, but no. That's Talking Nonsense. Thank you for coming in tonight, Russell, and being on the show. We really enjoyed you, and we hope you keep tuning in and you keep giving us advice to make our show better.
Yeah, happy to do that. Yeah, you guys do great work, and excited to see more of them.
And that's Amari and Christian and Russell. Good night.